I was packing Martha's famous apple pie when my son Brian called. "Dad, about Christmas dinner? Sarah thinks it's better if you don't come this year." My hands froze on the pie dish. We need to establish boundaries with the kids. You know, modern parenting. After 35 years of never missing a Christmas, I was being uninvited. I quietly set down the pie, grabbed my car keys, and walked out to my truck. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any argument ever could. The December air bit at my face as I climbed into my old Ford F-150. My hands gripped the steering wheel, but I couldn't turn the key. Brian's words echoed in my mind like a broken record. Modern parenting. Boundaries, Sarah thinks. Sarah. My daughter-in-law of 12 years. The woman who smiled sweetly at Sunday dinners while checking her phone every 5 minutes. The woman who always had an excuse when I offered to take my grandchildren Emma and James fishing or to ball games. I finally started the engine and drove. No destination in mind, just the need to move to put distance between myself and the house that suddenly felt too empty. The snow had started falling gentle flakes that reminded me of the Christmas when Brian was 7 and we built his first snowman together. Just the two of us after Martha had passed. Raising Brian alone hadn't been easy. A construction foreman trying to be both mother and father, learning to braid Emma's hair from YouTube videos, sitting through parent-teacher conferences, where I was the only dad in the room. But we'd made it work. Every Christmas, every birthday, every school play, I'd been there. The fuel gauge nudged toward empty somewhere outside Millbrook, and I pulled into Rosie's Diner. The place had been there since the 50s, with its red vinyl booths and chrome fixtures that had seen better days. I took a seat at the counter and ordered black coffee from a waitress whose name tag read Dottie. "Rough night, hon?" Dottie asked, pouring the coffee with the practiced ease of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. "Something like that," I managed. The diner was mostly empty, just a trucker in the corner booth, and 2 women in their 40s sitting behind me. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but in the quiet diner, their voices carried. "So, Carol, you'll never guess what Sarah Brennan told the book club last week," one woman said. I stiffened. Sarah Brennan. My daughter-in-law. "Oh, do tell Linda. That woman always has something going on." She was going on and on about finally getting the old man out of the picture. Said she's tired of pretending to like the old fool. Can you believe that? My coffee cup trembled in my hand. I set it down carefully, afraid I might shatter it. Carol clicked her tongue disapprovingly. "That's awful. Her father-in-law seems like such a nice man. I've seen him at the grocery store, always polite." Well, according to Sarah, he's been interfering with their parenting. But get this, she also mentioned something about the house. Apparently she's been pushing Brian to sell his dad's place. Says it's too big for one person, and they could use the money for the kids' college funds. "Does the old man know?" Linda laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Sarah doesn't think he owns it anymore. She thinks Brian inherited it when his mother died. But here's the kicker, she's already talked to a lawyer about having him declared incompetent. Says he's been showing signs of confusion." My blood turned to ice water in my veins. The house I'd built with my own hands, where I'd raised Brian, where Martha had taken her last breath. Sarah thought Brian owned it. "That's terrible," Carol said. "But why would she need him declared incompetent if Brian owns the house?" Power of attorney, apparently. She wants control over all his assets. The woman's been planning this for months. She even mentioned she's been keeping the Christmas presents he sends the kids. Doesn't want them getting too attached to Grandpa. The room spun slightly. All those gifts I'd carefully chosen, toy trains for James, art supplies for Emma, never reaching my grandchildren. How many birthdays, how many Christmases had they thought I'd forgotten them? The worst part, Linda continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially, is that she told us she's been working on Brian for over a year. Drip, drip, drip. Little comments here and there about his dad being overbearing, outdated, potentially harmful to the children's development. I'd heard enough. I left a 20 on the counter and walked out into the snowy night. My legs felt unsteady, but it wasn't from age. It was from the realization that I'd been under attack in my own family and never knew it. Sitting in my truck, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through text messages from Brian over the past year. Now that I knew what to look for, the pattern was clear. Fewer invitations to family dinners, excuses about why I couldn't pick up the kids from school, suggestions that maybe I should take it easy and not drive so much at night. The manipulation had been so gradual, so carefully orchestrated, that I'd blamed myself. Thought maybe I was being too pushy, too old-fashioned. I'd backed off, given them space exactly what Sarah had wanted. I drove home through the swirling snow, my mind no longer fuzzy with hurt, but sharp with clarity. Sarah had declared war on me without my knowledge, but now I knew. And if there was one thing 30 years in construction had taught me, it was that the best foundation is laid carefully, methodically, and with complete knowledge of the ground you're building on. Sarah thought she was dealing with a confused old man. She was about to learn that this old fool had built more than houses in his lifetime. He'd built a life, a family, and a future for his son that no manipulative woman was going to tear down. The Christmas pie still sat on my kitchen counter when I got home, Martha's recipe card beside it. I looked at her handwriting, still clear after all these years, and made a decision. I wouldn't fight Sarah with anger or confrontation. That's what she expected, what she could use against me. No, I'd learned something else in all those years of building. Sometimes the most powerful tool isn't a hammer. Sometimes it's knowing exactly which support beam to remove to bring the whole structure down. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I went to my home office, a room Sarah had only seen once during a house tour years ago. She'd wrinkled her nose at the old metal filing cabinets and suggested I modernize with everything digital. I'd smiled and nodded, then kept every paper record exactly where it was. Those filing cabinets held 35 years of careful documentation. I pulled out the folder marked Brian Financial and spread its contents across my desk. Under the lamp's yellow light, the papers told a story Sarah had no idea existed. The mortgage payment started 8 years ago when Brian came to me embarrassed and struggling. The economy had hit his marketing firm hard, and with a new baby, Emma, on the way, he couldn't make the payments on their 4-bedroom colonial. "I'll figure something out, Dad." He'd set his face red with shame. Maybe a second job. I'd watched my son, seeing Martha's pride in his jaw, and remembering how he'd delivered newspapers at age 10 to buy his first bike. I made a decision that night. "You focus on your family," I'd told him. "Let me talk to some people." Harold Martinez had been my banker for 20 years. We'd worked out an arrangement where I deposited $2,800 monthly into a special account. The bank drew the mortgage payments from there, and Brian received statements showing the payments coming from a loan modification program he thought he'd qualified for. "Just until you get back on your feet," I'd told him. But as I looked at the records, those payments had never stopped. 8 years of payments, $268,800 in total. I pulled out another folder. Private school tuition for Emma and James. $12,000 per year per child. Paid directly, so Brian and Sarah thought they'd received financial aid. Brian's car loan when his transmission died. Medical bills when James broke his arm. All carefully orchestrated to look like insurance coverage or payment plans that weren't really payment plans at all. The numbers stared back at me. Over $500,000 in the past decade, not including smaller expenses. Cash slipped into birthday cards. Grocery deliveries during tough months. The new furnace I'd happened to have from a job site when theirs died in February. I opened my laptop and logged into the bank account. Everything automated, everything clean. Harold had called me 3 months ago about something unusual, but I'd been distracted by planning Emma's birthday gift and hadn't followed up. Now I called him despite the late hour. Jody. Harold's voice was alert. Bankers of his generation didn't really sleep. I was wondering when you'd call. About what you mentioned in September. Brian's credit. I probably shouldn't have looked, but the name popped up in our system. His scores dropped 200 points in 6 months. Credit cards maxed out. New applications denied. My stomach clenched. How much? From what I can see, about $40,000 in credit card debt. All recent. Purchases at Nordstrom Saks, someplace called Equinox. Restaurant charges at places I can't even pronounce. Sarah. It had to be Sarah. Brian bought his clothes at Target and thought Applebee's was fancy dining. There's more, Harold continued. Someone called about a home equity loan last month. Female voice. Claimed to be calling on Brian's behalf. We don't do those over the phone, but she was pretty insistent. Mentioned something about knowing the real value of the property. The room felt cold despite the furnace running. Sarah had been doing reconnaissance, trying to figure out how much she could extract. Harold, I need you to pull something else for me. All automatic payments from my special account. I want to know exactly where every penny goes. Give me 20 minutes. While I waited, I pulled out more files. The deed to this house still in my name, despite what Sarah apparently believed. The small apartment building on Cypress Street that generated rental income. The investment accounts Martha and I had started when Brian was born. The life insurance policies. The union pension. Sarah thought she was targeting a retired construction worker with a house and Social Security. She had no idea she was trying to con someone worth $3.2 million. Harold called back with a detailed list. Beyond the mortgage, I found payments I'd forgotten about. Brian's business line of credit guaranteed by me. Health insurance supplements. Even their Netflix account of all things, because Brian had once mentioned choosing between streaming and Emma's dance classes. Jody, there's something else. 3 months of returned payment notices on those credit cards. Brian's been getting letters, but they're all going to a P.O. box that isn't his home address. My blood ran cold. Sarah was intercepting mail, keeping Brian in the dark about their financial spiral. I thought about my son working 60-hour weeks, trusting his wife to handle the household finances while he provided. He had no idea he was 3 months from bankruptcy. I made another call, this time to my accountant, Douglas Chen. Despite the name, Sarah would have rejected. Doug was third-generation American and the sharpest money man in the state. I need a complete financial picture, I told him. Everything I've given Brian in the past decade, every tax implication, every paper trail. Having family troubles. Doug knew me too well. You could say that. I'll have a report by Monday. Jody, if someone's trying to claim financial elder abuse or mismanagement, we need to document your mental capacity. I know a forensic accountant who specializes in family fraud cases. Family fraud. The words tasted bitter. This woman had sat at my table for 12 years, eaten Martha's recipes that I'd learned to cook, smiled, while she plotted to destroy me. I spent the rest of the night organizing documents. Bank statements showing my careful management. Investment returns proving sound decision-making. Property records, tax returns, business dealings. By dawn, I had assembled a paper fortress that would withstand any legal assault. But more importantly, I had ammunition. Every payment I'd made could be stopped with a phone call. The mortgage Brian didn't know I paid. The tuition he thought was covered by financial aid. The business line of credit that kept his company afloat. Sarah wanted to play financial games. She'd chosen the wrong opponent. I'd negotiated with union bosses, dealt with corrupt suppliers, and built a small empire from nothing but sweat and stubbornness. I'd survived Martha's death, raised a son alone, and created generational wealth from a working man's wages. I looked at the family photo on my desk. Last Christmas, all of us smiling. Sarah's hand on Brian's shoulder, her smile perfect for the camera. I wondered how long she'd been planning this. How many family dinners had she sat through, calculating my worth, planning her attack. The sun rose over fresh snow, painting the world clean and white. I made coffee and stood at the window watching the neighborhood wake up. Tom across the street shoveling his driveway. The Johnson kids building a snow fort. Normal people living normal lives, unaware of the war being waged in my quiet house. I thought about Brian, probably awake now, getting ready for work. Did he know about the credit cards? The intercepted mail? Or was he as blind to Sarah's deception as I'd been? One thing was certain. Sarah had made a critical error. She'd assumed I was just a simple old man with a paid-off house and a modest pension. She'd never bothered to look deeper to understand that blue-collar didn't mean broke, that careful didn't mean poor. Now I held all the cards and she didn't even know we were playing. Monday morning arrived with a bitter wind that rattled my windows. I'd spent Sunday cataloging everything, but information wasn't enough. I needed intelligence, the kind that required professional help. Ray Kowalski answered on the second ring. Well, if it isn't Jody Brennan, what's it been 2 years? Since your retirement party? I confirmed. Ray and I had served together in the Marines before life took us different directions. Him to the police force, then private investigation. Me to construction. Social call or business? Business, the kind that needs discretion. My favorite kind? Murphy's Tavern Nuth. Murphy's hadn't changed since we'd celebrated our discharge there in '78. Dark wood, darker corners, and a bartender who knew when not to listen. Ray sat in the back booth, looking like every cop cliché except for the eyes. Those eyes had seen too much to ever fully retire. I laid out the basics. The Christmas uninvitation, the overheard conversation, the financial discoveries. Ray took notes on a small pad, his handwriting still precise after decades of report writing. The wife, Sarah. Tell me about her. 12 years of marriage to Brian. Met her at some marketing conference. She was in pharmaceutical sales, quit when Emma was born. Said she wanted to focus on family. But, I thought back. Always seemed to have money for herself. Expensive gym membership, shopping trips to the city. Told Brian it was from selling things online, some boutique business. Ray's pencil stopped moving. Classic cover. Easy to fake income, impossible to verify. What else? Tuesday book club that she never misses. Pilates 3 times a week at that new studio downtown. Lunch dates with her mother, Gloria, every Thursday. Regular schedule. Good for surveillance. What about the husband? It hurt to analyze my own son like a case file. Brian leaves at 6:30 every morning, home by 7 most nights. Sometimes later. Weekend work is common. He trusts her completely with the household. They always do. Give me 48 hours for preliminary surveillance. My rate is... I waved him off. Whatever it costs. Ray studied me with those cop eyes. This is your son we're talking about. You sure you want to know everything? I already know she's planning to destroy me. What could be worse? Ray's expression suggested I'd be surprised. 2 days later, my phone rang at 7 in the morning. Ray's voice was grim. We need to meet. Bring cash for expenses. This goes deeper than credit cards. Back at Murphy's, Ray spread photos across the scarred wooden table. Sarah entering the Marriott downtown. Sarah in the parking garage. Sarah and a man who definitely wasn't Brian. Marcus Webb, Ray said. Personal trainer at Equinox, 28 years old. Been training her for 2 years. The next photos showed them in the hotel lobby, the elevator a room service cart in a hallway. My stomach churned, but not from jealousy on Brian's behalf. From rage at the betrayal. How long? Based on hotel records I may have accessed through channels I won't discuss, 14 months, sometimes twice a week. Always Tuesday afternoons and Thursday mornings. Book club and her mother? Book club exists. She just leaves early. Her mother covers for the Thursday meetings. Gloria knows about the affair. I studied the photos. Marcus looked like a magazine cover, all muscles and white teeth. Young enough to be her son. What's his story? Aspiring actor. Moved here from Los Angeles 2 years ago. Lives in a studio apartment he can barely afford. Drives a leased BMW he's behind on. Classic wannabe. He's in it for money. Ray pulled out more documents. Credit card receipts. She's been paying for their hotel rooms with Brian's American Express. The one Brian doesn't know exists because the statements go to that P.O. box. But here's where it gets interesting. He showed me bank records. $5,000 cash withdrawals from Brian's business account. Regular as clockwork. Always just under the reporting limit. She's been funding her boy toy while destroying your son's credit. The rage built, slowly controlled. In construction, uncontrolled anger got people killed. This required the same discipline. There's more, Ray continued. I had my tech guy pull her phone records. 3 weeks ago she called Hartman and Associates. They're the biggest elder law firm in the state. Specializes in conservatorships and incompetency hearings. The women at the diner mentioned that. She's been busy. Also called Adult Protective Services, twice didn't leave messages. Probably testing the waters. And get this, she's been recording you. Recording. Ray pulled out a tablet, played an audio file. My voice talking about being tired, forgetting where I put my keys. But something was off about the flow. It's edited, Ray explained. Badly but enough to fool someone who wants to believe it. She's been building a case file. Every time you forget something normal, every senior moment she's capturing and editing it. Can we prove the editing? My tech guy says absolutely. Digital forensics would tear this apart. But she's banking on never getting that far. Most conservatorship hearings are rubber stamps if the family agrees. Brian would never... Brian doesn't know. She's been telling him you're showing signs of decline, gentle concern, loving worry. She's got Gloria backing her up, probably other friends too. Death by 1,000 cuts to your reputation. I felt the weight of betrayal, not just Sarah's, but the system she was exploiting. How many elderly parents had fallen to this kind of manipulation? What about December 26th? Ray's eyebrows rose. How did you know? Overheard at the diner. They're planning something after Christmas. Court filing for emergency conservatorship. I pulled the draft from her lawyer's trash. Claims you're a danger to yourself, unable to manage finances, possibly showing signs of dementia. She's got affidavits from 3 of her friends swearing they've witnessed concerning behavior. What behavior? According to these, you've been making threats showing paranoia and gave $10,000 to a stranger last month. I thought hard. I wrote a check to the Veterans Foundation at the grocery store. Big cardboard display helps homeless vets. In her version, you were confused and got scammed. See the pattern, taking normal events and twisting them. She's good at this. Too good for an amateur. Ray nodded. That's what I thought. So I dug into Gloria the mother. This isn't her first rodeo. 15 years ago in Ohio, she tried the same thing with her own father. Case fell apart when he hired a good lawyer, but she walked away with $50,000 in settlement money. Like mother, like daughter, a family business of elder abuse. What else? I could see Ray holding something back. He sighed, pulled out more photos. These showed Sarah at various locations. The bank talking to a realtor, meeting with someone outside a moving company. She's planning for after. Already has a realtor ready to list your house the moment she gets conservatorship. Moving company to clear it out. She's even been photographing your possessions, probably for estate sale value. I looked at the photo of her in my house taking pictures of Martha's china. The china I'd bought piece by piece for anniversaries that Martha had loved. That was supposed to go to Emma someday. She made one mistake, Ray said quietly. She's been bragging. That book club conversation you overheard, she's done it elsewhere. My contact at the country club says she's been telling people you're going into a home soon. Even mentioned which one. Golden Acres, the cheap one by the highway. The final insult. Not even a decent facility, but the kind where people went to be forgotten. I've got everything documented, Ray concluded. Video, audio, photos, paper trails. Enough to bury her in court. But Jody, this is going to destroy Brian when he finds out. I thought about my son working himself to death while his wife spent his money on hotel rooms and a toy boy. trusting her while she plotted against his father. He'd be devastated, but living a lie was worse. "He's stronger than she thinks," I said finally. "He's Martha's son, too." Ray packed up his evidence. "What's your next move?" "She wants to ambush me on Christmas Eve, let her try. But first I need to protect my assets and prepare my own surprises. She's not the only one who can plan ahead." "Need backup?" "Not yet. But Ray, that Christmas Eve gathering she's planning, I might need witnesses." Ray grinned the kind of smile that used to terrify suspects. "Wouldn't miss it. I'll bring the tech guy, too. He loves watching his audio analysis destroy liars in real time." As I drove home with boxes of evidence, I thought about Sarah's critical error. She'd studied me like a mark, learned my routines, my weaknesses. But she'd only seen the surface. The old man who forgot his keys sometimes. The widower who got emotional about his late wife. The retiree puttering around his too-big house. She'd never seen the Marine who'd survived Beirut. The construction foreman who'd faced down corrupt inspectors. The single father who'd raised a good man despite every obstacle. The builder who'd created wealth from nothing but determination. Sarah thought she was hunting a sheep. She was about to learn she'd cornered a wolf. A patient, methodical wolf who'd just spent 48 hours learning every detail of her life, while she thought he was driving aimlessly in the snow. The Christmas pie still sat on my counter, preserved by the cold kitchen. I threw it in the trash. This year there would be no Martha's apple pie at Brian's table. But there would be justice served colder than any December wind. Charles Whitfield had been my attorney for 25 years. He'd handled Martha's estate, set up my corporation, and once talked me out of punching a building inspector who demanded a bribe. When I called requesting an urgent meeting, he cleared his Thursday morning. His office occupied the top floor of a building I'd helped construct in '93. Through his windows you could see half the town, including the roof of Brian's house in the distance. "Jody, you look like a man preparing for war," Charles said after reviewing Ray's evidence. "That's exactly what this is." Charles studied the documents with the intensity of a surgeon. His silver hair caught the morning light as he made notes on a legal pad. "This is comprehensive. Ray does excellent work. The affair, the financial fraud, the conspiracy with her mother. Any one of these would destroy her credibility. Together, she'll be lucky to avoid jail time." "I don't want her in jail. I want her gone." "From Brian's life." "From all our lives. But first I need to protect everything I've built." Charles leaned back in his leather chair. "Asset protection. Smart. What did you have in mind?" I'd spent the previous night planning. "First, the house. I want it in an irrevocable trust. Something she can't touch even if hell freezes over and she somehow gets conservatorship. I can do better. We'll create a family trust with Brian and the grandchildren as beneficiaries, but with you as sole trustee for life. Even if she manipulates Brian, he can't access it without your consent. The apartment building, LLC owned by the trust. Rental income flows through, but the asset is protected. What about liquid assets? Move everything except operating cash into investment accounts the trust controls. Leave enough in my personal accounts to look normal." Charles made notes rapidly. "The mortgage payment arrangement. That stops today. Let Brian feel the consequences of trusting the wrong person. Harsh, but necessary. What about documenting your mental capacity? Already scheduled. 3 independent doctors tomorrow. Full cognitive evaluation, psychiatric assessment, neurological exam. I wanted bulletproof. Overkill is better than underkill in these cases. Now about the December 26th filing she's planning." I smiled for the first time in days. "Let her file. In fact, I'm counting on it." Charles raised an eyebrow. "You want her to petition for conservatorship? She's going to lie under oath, submit falsified evidence, bring in coached witnesses, all while we have proof of her fraud, adultery, and conspiracy. How does that play in court? Like a beautiful trap. She'll hang herself with her own rope. But we need to document everything between now and then." "Already started." I pulled out a small device. "Digital recorder. time-stamped, voice-activated. My house is now wired like a recording studio, all legal in my own home. What about witnesses to your mental state? I've been visiting neighbors clearly lucid. Helped Tom with his snowblower yesterday, discussed engine mechanics for an hour. Had coffee with the Johnsons, talked about their son's college plans. Building a record of normalcy. Charles nodded approvingly. Smart. Contemporaneous witnesses beat after-the-fact testimony every time. What about the Christmas Eve ambush? That's where things get interesting. She's told people it's an intervention for my supposed decline. I'm going to let her gather everyone, make her accusations, present her evidence. And then I present mine. Ray and his tech expert will be there. You too, if you're willing. Maybe a court reporter to make it official. Charles grinned like a shark. I wouldn't miss it. Should I bring anything? The fraud evidence, the trust documents, maybe a cease and desist letter for good measure. Consider it done. Now let's talk about Brian. How much does he know? That was the painful part. Nothing yet. He's about to get hit with a mortgage notice, overdue credit cards, and the discovery that his wife has been stealing from him. It'll be brutal. Better he learns from consequences than accusations. He'd defend her against you, but he can't defend her against bankruptcy notices. We spent 3 hours structuring everything. The trust documents, the asset transfers, the medical evaluations. Charles had his team preparing paperwork while we talked. By noon, my $3.2 million in assets would be locked away tighter than Fort Knox. There's one more thing, Charles said as we finished. Gloria the mother, her history in Ohio. I can get those records unsealed if needed. Do it. If she wants to testify about my mental state, jury should know about her past. I left Charles's office feeling prepared but hollow. Protecting assets was just defense. Now I needed to go on offense. My next stop was Dr. Patricia Hoffman, head of neurology at County General. We'd met when Martha was sick, and she'd been one of the few doctors who'd treated us like humans instead of case numbers. Jody, this is quite unusual, she said after I explained what I needed. 3 independent evaluations. Someone's trying to have me declared incompetent. I need proof that's impossible to refute. Her face hardened. Elder abuse through the legal system. I see it too often. We'll make sure your results are unassailable. I'll personally oversee all 3 evaluations. The tests took all day Friday. Cognitive assessment, memory tests, problem-solving scenarios. Dr. Hoffman added extra documentation, including brain scans that showed no sign of deterioration. Your brain looks better than most 50-year-olds, she told me. Whatever this person is claiming, medical science says they're full of crap. Saturday, I handled the technology side. Best Buy must have wondered why a 70-year-old man needed professional recording equipment, but cash solved any questions. I spent the day installing cameras and microphones, all focused on common areas where Sarah might visit. My neighbor, Tom, caught me adjusting a camera angle. Home security upgrade. Something like that. Been some break-ins over in Riverside. Good thinking. Hey, thanks again for fixing the snowblower. Thing runs better than new now. Another witness to my competence. Every interaction counted. Sunday brought the first consequences. My phone rang at 8 a.m., Brian panic in his voice. Dad, something's wrong with the mortgage. The bank says they haven't received payment in 3 months. But that's impossible. The automatic payment? Slow down, son. What automatic payment? The loan modification. From when Emma was born. They say there's no modification, that someone else has been paying. Dad, what's going on? I kept my voice steady. I don't know, Brian. Have you talked to Sarah? She handles the finances, right? She's at her mother's. Says she doesn't know anything about it. Dad, we could lose the house. And there are other notices. Credit cards I didn't know existed. $40,000 in debt. How is that possible? The pain in his voice almost broke my resolve. My boy, my son, who'd worked since he was 16, discovering his life was built on lies. Come over, I said. Bring the paperwork. We'll figure this out. Sarah says I shouldn't bother you. That that you've been tired lately, confused." There it was, the poison dripping into his ear. "Do I sound confused to you?" "No, but she's worried. Says you've been acting strange. Her mother noticed too." "Brian, I'm your father. Have I ever let you down when you needed help?" A long pause. "No, Dad, never." "Then come over, just you and the paperwork. We'll solve this like men." He agreed reluctantly. I had 2 hours to decide how much truth to reveal. Part of me wanted to tell him everything, show him the pictures of Sarah and Marcus, the evidence of theft. But that would make me the villain in his eyes, the jealous father trying to break up his marriage. No, Brian needed to discover the truth himself. I could guide him, but he had to take the steps. When he arrived, he looked haggard. His usually neat hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled. This was my son, who ironed his jeans in college, reduced to a mess by the weight of betrayal he didn't yet understand. "Show me," I said simply. The papers painted a clear picture. Mortgage notices, credit card bills, overdue statements, all addressed to Brian but sent to the P.O. box Sarah controlled. The credit card statements showed the truth. Nordstrom Saks, the Marriott downtown. Charges for 2 at restaurants Brian had never been to. "I don't understand," he kept saying. "Sarah handles all this. She's good with money. She ran the books for her father's business." I wanted to scream that she was good with money, all right, good at stealing it. Instead, I asked questions. "Do you recognize these purchases?" "No. Sarah says she buys things for the house for the kids, but 40,000. "What about these restaurant charges chez Laurent? That's pretty fancy." "We've never been there. Can't afford it with the kids' tuition." I let that sink in. "Brian, about the tuition. Have you ever seen a bill?" He looked confused. "No, it's automatically deducted. The financial aid covers most of it." Another lie to unravel. But not yet. First, he needed to confront the immediate crisis. "You need to look into this," I said carefully. "Talk to the bank, the credit card companies. Get a full picture." Sarah says not to worry, that it's probably identity theft. "Then file a police report. Get it documented." His face paled. "She doesn't want police involved. Says it'll hurt my business reputation." Of course she didn't. I changed tactics. "What does your gut tell you?" Brian slumped in his chair. For a moment, I saw the little boy who'd come to me with scraped knees and broken toys. "That something's very wrong, but I can't believe Sarah wouldn't." "Then investigate. Trust, but verify. That's what you do in business, right?" He nodded slowly. "I'll go to the bank tomorrow. Pull all the records." "Good. And Brian, whatever you find, remember you're not alone. You've got family who loves you." He hugged me, then fierce and desperate. "Thanks, Dad. I'm sorry about Christmas. Sarah means well, she's just worried about you." I held my son, smelling his cologne and remembering baby powder. "I know," I lied. "Everything will work out." After he left, I sat in my study surrounded by evidence of Sarah's betrayal. The trust documents were signed, my assets protected. The medical evaluations proved my competence. The recordings waited to capture her lies. Christmas Eve was 5 days away. Sarah thought she was directing a play where I was the confused villain and she the caring daughter-in-law. She had no idea the script had been rewritten, the stage reset, and the final act would be nothing like she planned. I picked up Martha's photo from my desk. "I'm protecting our boy," I told her. "The way you would have wanted. Smart, not angry." In the photo, Martha smiled back, eternal and knowing. She'd always been the smart one, the planner. I was just following her example years after she'd gone. The chessboard was set. The pieces were in motion. Now all I had to do was wait for Sarah to make her moves, confident in her strategy, unaware that the game had already been won. Tuesday morning shattered like glass. My phone rang at 6:47. Brian's ringtone cutting through the quiet kitchen. I'd been awake since 4, watching snowfall in the backyard waiting. Dad. His voice cracked like a teenager's. Dad, the bank. They're foreclosing. They say we're in default. 90 days overdue. Slow down. Start from the beginning. I went to the bank yesterday like you said. Dad, there's no loan modification. Never was. The payments. Someone's been paying my mortgage for 8 years. $2,800 a month. I stayed silent, letting him process. It was you, wasn't it? The words came out strangled. All this time, you've been paying for my house. You were drowning, I said simply. A father helps his son. But I thought, Sarah said the bank. God, what else has she lied about? Everything I wanted to say. Instead, what did the bank tell you? The payment stopped 3 months ago. No notice because they were going to that P.O. box. Sarah's P.O. box. She knew Dad. She knew and didn't tell me. Where is she now? At her Pilates class. Or so she says. I don't know what to believe anymore. My phone beeped. Another call coming in. Brian, I need to take this. Come by later. Yeah, Dad, and thank you for everything. The second call was Harold from the bank. Jody, I've got Brian here asking questions. How much do I tell him? Whatever he asks. Full transparency. He needs to know. Even about the other payments, tuition, medical bills. Everything, Harold. It's time. I hung up and made coffee, then sat at my kitchen table with Martha's photo album. Pictures of Brian growing up, Sarah entering our lives, the grandchildren being born. When had it gone wrong? When had Sarah looked at our family and seen only dollar signs? The phone rang again at 9:15. Brian completely broken. Dad, it's all fake, everything. The kids' tuition, the car payments, even our health insurance supplements. You've been paying for everything. Not everything. You've been working yourself to death to provide. I just filled the gaps. $500,000, Dad. The bank showed me. $500,000 over 8 years. And Sarah knew. The P.O. box had statements for all of it. What are you going to do? A long silence. I found something else. Credit card statements going back 2 years. Charges at hotels. Always Tuesday and Thursday. Always for 2. Brian. I know what it means. I'm not stupid. Tuesdays are book club. Thursdays she's with her mother. Except she's not, is she? You need to talk to her. With what words? Hey honey, are you cheating on me while stealing from my father? How's that for dinner conversation? The bitterness in his voice hurt more than Sarah's betrayal. This was my son breaking apart in real time. Get proof first, I advised. Protect yourself and the kids. Already called a lawyer. Emergency appointment tomorrow. He paused. Dad, has she said anything to you about your health, your mental state? Careful now. Like what? She's been telling people you're declining, forgetting things, getting confused. Her mother called our neighbors, said to watch out for you wandering around lost. Do I seem confused to you? No, but she's convincing. Has these stories. Says you gave money to strangers, that you've been paranoid. Even played me some recordings where you sound off. Recordings. Your voice but jumbled. Confused. Not like you at all. The edited recordings Ray had found. Brian, if someone wanted to make you sound confused, how hard would it be to edit recordings? Silence. Then, oh my God, she's setting you up. Why would she? The house. She wants your house. Among other things. Dad, I need to see those recordings. All of them. Something about Christmas Eve keeps coming up in her texts. What kind of something? She's invited family over. Says it's important. Mentioned something about difficult decisions and doing what's best for everyone. The intervention, the ambush, right on schedule. Brian, whatever happens Christmas Eve, remember I love you. Trust what you see, not what you're told. Dad, you're scaring me. Just promise me. No matter what Sarah says, what Gloria says, what anyone says, trust your own eyes and ears. I promise, Dad. Yes. I'm sorry for uninviting you, for believing her lies, for being blind. You're not blind, You trusted your wife. That's what good men do. After we hung up, I spent an hour on the phone with Charles updating him. The foreclosure notice had lit a fuse under Brian. By Christmas Eve, he'd know enough to see through Sarah's performance. The phone rang again at 2. Unknown number. Mr. Brennan. A young woman's voice, nervous. This is Emma, your granddaughter. My heart clenched. Emma, sweetheart, why are you calling from a strange number? It's Brittany's phone, from school. Mom checks mine. Red flags everywhere. Is everything okay? Grandpa, are you sick? Mom says you have something wrong with your brain. She says we can't see you because you might forget who we are or hurt us. The cruelty took my breath away, poisoning my grandchildren against me. Emma, do I sound sick to you? No, but Mom says sick people don't know they're sick. She made us practice what to do if you show up confused. James is supposed to call 911. My hands shook with controlled rage, using my grandchildren as weapons. Emma, listen carefully. I'm not sick. I just had 3 doctors check everything. My brain is fine. But sometimes adults have disagreements and they say things that aren't true. Is Mom lying? How do you answer that to a 13-year-old? Your mom is worried about things that aren't real. But Emma, I need you to know something. No matter what happens, I love you and James. That will never change. I love you too, Grandpa. I miss our fishing trips. We'll go again, I promise. Mom's coming. I have to go. Grandpa, will you be at Christmas? I'll try, sweetheart. The line went dead. I sat in my kitchen rage building like a construction project. Foundation of betrayal, walls of lies, roof of cruelty to children. Sarah had crossed every line. My phone buzzed. Text from Brian. Found the P.O. box. $40,000 in bills. Calling divorce lawyer now. Then another. She's been recording you for months. Found the device in her purse. And finally, Dad, I'm so sorry. For everything. I texted back. Come for dinner. Bring the kids if you can. She took them to her mother's. Says I'm being irrational. Of course she did. Sarah was circling the wagons, preparing for battle. She thought she held all the cards. The confused father-in-law, the manipulated husband, the poisoned grandchildren, the coached witnesses. But she'd made one crucial error. She'd awakened the wolf. That evening, Brian came by with boxes of evidence he'd found. Credit card statements, the recording device, printed emails between Sarah and her mother, discussing the situation with Jody. Look at this one, Brian said, showing me an email dated 3 months ago. Gloria writes, remember what we discussed. Patience is key. By spring, we'll have everything. Spring. That's when Dad's house would sell best according to Sarah's realtor friend. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Brian had done homework, where Martha had served thousands of meals, where Sarah had smiled and plotted. What do I do, Dad? The kids, divorce will destroy them. What's destroying them is living with a mother who lies, cheats, and steals, who teaches them to fear their grandfather. Is that the example you want? Brian's shoulders sagged. She's already spinning it, telling everyone I'm having a breakdown, that you're manipulating me. Some of our friends are buying it. Let them. Truth has a way of surfacing. Christmas Eve, Brian said suddenly. She's planned something for Christmas Eve. Kept asking if I'd be home if you'd been invited anywhere else. Dad, what's she planning? Why don't we find out together, come to Christmas Eve dinner. Bring whoever you trust. Let's see what Sarah has in mind. You know something. I know she's expecting a confused old man. It might be interesting if she gets something else. Brian studied me, and for the first time in years I saw Martha's shrewd intelligence in his eyes. You've been playing possum? This whole time you knew. I learned 3 days ago, been preparing ever since. Preparing what? Just his son, the kind that's served cold. We talked until midnight, father and son plotting like generals. Brian would play along, pretend to be the confused, manipulated husband Sarah expected. He'd document everything she said and did. Meanwhile, I'd be the wolf in sheep's clothing walking into her trap with my own fangs hidden. As Brian left, he hugged me tight. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You saw it when you needed to. That's what matters. Dad, whatever happens Christmas Eve, we're family. You, me, and the kids. Sarah can't change that. No. I agreed, thinking of Martha of Justice of the surprise waiting for Sarah in 48 hours. She certainly can't. The phone calls had started the avalanche. Brian's awakening Emma's courage, the evidence piling up like snow. Sarah thought she was the puppeteer pulling strings, directing the show. She had no idea the strings had been cut, the puppet had become the wolf. And the show would have a very different ending than the one she'd scripted. 2 days until Christmas Eve. 2 days until Sarah's carefully planned intervention became her own judgment day. I looked at Martha's photo one last time before bed. Almost there, love. Our boy's going to be fine. And Sarah. She's about to learn what happens when you threaten a wolf's cubs. December 24th arrived crisp and clear, the kind of winter day that made everything look like a Christmas card. I dressed carefully in my best suit, the one Martha had picked out for our 40th anniversary. If Sarah wanted a performance, she'd get one. Charles had sent a text at dawn. Everything ready? Court reporter will arrive separately. Recording equipment double-checked. Ray and tech specialist confirmed. I'd spoken to Brian last night. He was playing his part perfectly, the confused husband trying to keep peace. Sarah had no idea he'd spent 3 days with lawyers and accountants, documenting every lie, every theft, every betrayal. At 4 o'clock, I drove to Brian's house. Cars already lined the street. Sarah had assembled quite an audience for her show. I recognized Gloria's Cadillac, Sarah's book club friends' vehicles, even their neighbor Karen's minivan. All here to witness my supposed descent into senility. I parked and walked to the door, noting the curtains twitch in the living room. Sarah, checking her prey, had arrived. I rang the doorbell instead of using my key, playing the uncertain grandfather. Sarah answered, her face a mask of fake concern. Oh, Jody, you came. How are you feeling today? Fine, Sarah. Merry Christmas. Yes, well, come in. Everyone's here. The living room was packed. I counted 15 people, all watching me, with expressions ranging from pity to discomfort. Sarah had staged it perfectly. The Christmas tree in the corner, soft lighting, everyone positioned to witness the intervention. Gloria sat in Martha's old chair, the one I'd given Brian when we cleaned out the house. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Sarah's mother claiming the matriarch's throne. Dad, Brian rose from the couch, playing his part. Glad you could make it. Emma and James sat by the fireplace, looking confused and scared. Emma caught my eye and I winked. Her face relaxed slightly. Jody, why don't you sit here? Sarah gestured to a chair in the center of the room, positioned like a defendant's seat. I'm fine standing, thank you. Sarah's jaw tightened, but she maintained her smile. Of course, well, I suppose we should address why we're all here. Christmas Eve dinner, I asked innocently. Nervous laughter from the audience. Sarah's book club friends exchanged glances. Jody. Gloria stood assuming command. We're here because we care about you. We've noticed some concerning behaviors lately. Such as? Sarah stepped forward, pulling out papers. Dad, you've been forgetting things, important things. Last month you gave $10,000 to strangers. The Veterans Foundation. You were confused. The man at the grocery store took advantage of your condition. The man in the Marine Corps dress uniform collecting for homeless veterans. That kind of stranger? Sarah pushed on. You've been paranoid secretive. You drove off 3 days ago without telling anyone where you were going. I'm 70 years old. Do I need permission to drive? It's not about permission. Karen from next door chimed in, clearly coached. It's about safety. Sarah showed us the recordings. Ah, the recordings. What recordings? Sarah pulled out her phone triumphantly. I'm sorry to do this, Dad, but everyone needs to hear. She played the edited audio. My voice confused and rambling, talking about people stealing from me, about not remembering where things were. Out of context, chopped up, it sounded concerning. "That's quite something," I said calmly. "When was this recorded?" "Various times over the past few months. I started documenting when I noticed your decline." "Interesting. May I share something, too?" Sarah blinked. "Of course, but—" I pulled out my own phone. "Since we're sharing recordings, here's one from Tuesday. Ray's tech guy had cleaned up the audio from my kitchen." Sarah's voice filled the room. "Once the old fool is declared incompetent, we'll have control of everything. The house alone is worth $800,000. Silence. Sarah's face went white. That's not... You edited that... Like you edited mine, no, Sarah. That's your voice, your words recorded in my kitchen while you thought I was in the bathroom. You can't record people without... In my own home, actually I can." I turned to the stunned audience. "Would you like to hear more? I have several hours." Brian stood up, no longer playing. "Or maybe they'd like to see these..." He pulled out the photographs. Sarah and Marcus at the hotel, the credit card bills, the bank statements showing theft. Gloria tried to salvage the situation. "This is exactly the paranoia we're talking about, hiring private investigators' secret recordings. These are signs of dementia. Is it paranoia if it's true?" Charles Whitfield entered the room, followed by a woman with a court reporter's equipment. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Mr. Brennan's attorney. This lovely lady is here to create an official record of tonight's proceedings." Sarah backed away. "You can't do this. This is my home." "Actually," Brian said quietly, "it's not. Dad's been paying the mortgage for 8 years. You'd know that if you'd been honest about the mail you've been hiding." "Brian, honey, you're confused. Your father is manipulating..." "Stop!" Brian's voice cut like ice. "Just stop. I know about Marcus. I know about the $40,000 in credit cards. I know about the money you stole from my business account." The room erupted. Sarah's friends demanding explanations. Gloria trying to hush everyone. Karen backing towards the door. I raised my hand for silence. "Before anyone leaves, you should know that Sarah and Gloria have been planning to file for conservatorship over me. Tomorrow, in fact. They've prepared affidavits claiming I'm mentally incompetent." "Because you are," Sarah screeched, losing her composure entirely. "You're a senile old man who should be in a home." "Perhaps these will change your mind." I handed her the medical reports. 3 independent neurological evaluations completed this week. Cognitive function above average for my age. Brain scans showing no deterioration. Would you like the doctor's phone numbers? Sarah threw the papers aside. "Those can be faked." "Unlike your edited recordings," Ray entered with his tech specialist. "Hi, everyone. We've analyzed the audio Sarah's been sharing. Want to see how she spliced together words I never said in that order?" The tech specialist set up a laptop showing waveforms on screen. "See these cuts? These insertions? This is amateur hour editing. Any court would throw this out in seconds." Sarah's friends were standing now, moving away from her like she had something contagious. The court reporter typed steadily, capturing every word. "Now," Charles said, opening his briefcase, "let's discuss the legal implications. Fraud, theft, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, falsifying evidence perjury, if she'd filed those affidavits. Don't forget adultery," Brian added coldly. "Relevant in the divorce proceedings." Sarah turned on him. "You can't divorce me, I'll take everything. The kids you've been telling that their grandfather has dementia? The kids you've been psychologically abusing to further your scheme." I pulled out my phone again. "Emma called me yesterday. Would you like to hear what you've been telling our grandchildren?" Emma's voice, young and frightened, filled the room. The conversation about me being dangerous, about calling 911 if I appeared. Several people gasped. "My God, Sarah," one of her book club friends whispered. "What have you done?" Gloria tried one last time. This is all a misunderstanding. Sarah was just concerned. Like you were concerned about your father in Ohio, Charles interrupted. We have the court records, Gloria. This isn't your first attempt at elder financial abuse, is it? Gloria's face crumpled. The room was silent except for the court reporter's keys. Sarah looked around wildly, realizing her audience had become witnesses against her. You're all crazy. He's manipulating everyone. Can't you see? What I see, Brian said quietly, is a woman who married me for money, who cheated on me, stole from me, lied to me, and tried to destroy my father. What I see is someone who needs to leave my house. Now. You can't throw me out. I live here. Not anymore. Charles handed her an envelope. Temporary restraining order signed by Judge Martinez an hour ago. You have 30 minutes to pack essentials. Police are outside if needed. Sarah grabbed the papers, reading frantically. This is illegal. You can't. Actually, we can. Ray opened the front door, revealing 2 police officers on the porch. These gentlemen will supervise your packing. Don't worry about your boyfriend, Marcus. He's been informed of the situation. Seemed quite eager to distance himself once he learned there was no money coming. The fight went out of Sarah like air from a punctured tire. She looked at Brian one last time. I loved you once. No, Brian replied. You loved what you thought you could take from us. There's a difference. As the police escorted Sarah upstairs, Gloria tried to slip out. Charles blocked her path. Not so fast. There's the matter of conspiracy charges. You'll be hearing from the district attorney. The room began to empty, Sarah's friends fleeing in embarrassment. Karen mumbled apologies before escaping. Soon only family remained. Emma and James, who'd watched everything in shocked silence. Brian looking exhausted but relieved. And me. Grandpa... Emma approached tentatively. Are you really okay? I knelt to her level. I'm perfect, sweetheart. My brain works just fine. Your mother was confused about some things. She lied. Yes, Emma, she lied. James, only 10, joined his sister. Does this mean we can have Christmas with you again? Every Christmas from now on, Brian said, putting his hands on his children's shoulders. Grandpa's part of our family, our real family. We watched through the window as Sarah was escorted to a police car, Gloria following in her Cadillac. The evidence would be processed, charges filed, justice served through proper channels. But the real justice had already happened in this living room, in front of witnesses who'd come to see my destruction, and instead saw Sarah's lies crumble. Dad. Brian said after the kids went to their rooms. How long have you really known? 3 days. That's when I learned the full scope. But I've sensed something wrong for months. Just didn't want to believe it. All those payments, I'll pay you back. No. That money was spent out of love to help my son. What Sarah stole she'll pay back through the courts. What I gave freely remains a gift. Brian wiped his eyes. What happens now? Now we rebuild. You and the kids can stay with me while you sort out the house. We'll have Christmas together the way it should be. And Sarah made her choices. Now she lives with the consequences. Charles and Ray packed up their equipment. The court reporter handed me a transcript. Everything's documented, Mr. Brennan. This was quite a Christmas Eve. After everyone left, Brian and I sat in his kitchen drinking coffee and processing the evening. The house felt different already, like a poison had been extracted. You know what the worst part is? Brian said. I feel relieved. Is that wrong? It's honest. You've been living a lie without knowing it. Truth is always a relief, even when it hurts. How did you stay so calm? When she played those recordings, made those accusations, I thought about it. Your mother taught me something. She said anger makes you stupid, but patience makes you dangerous. Sarah expected anger. She got patience instead. We talked until midnight, planning the immediate future. Legal proceedings, custody arrangements, financial reconstruction. The grandchildren would need therapy to undo Sarah's psychological damage. Brian would need support, rebuilding his credit, and his trust in people. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, justice had been served at the temperature of revenge ice cold. As I drove home, I passed the diner where I'd first learned of Sarah's betrayal. 3 days ago, I'd been a heartbroken father uninvited from Christmas. Tonight, I was a grandfather whose family had been returned, a father whose son had been freed, a man whose patience had defeated a predator. Martha would have been proud, not of the revenge but of the protection, of the way I'd shielded Brian and the children from the worst while letting them see enough truth to heal. Tomorrow was Christmas. There would be presents and laughter tears and healing, the beginning of rebuilding what Sarah had tried to destroy. But tonight I savored the quiet satisfaction of a wolf who'd protected his pack. Sarah had thought me a sheep easy prey for her schemes. She'd learned too late that some sheep have teeth, and patience makes them deadly. The snow continued to fall, covering the world in fresh white. A clean start. A new beginning. And the promise of Christmases to come, filled with real family honest love, and the kind of trust Sarah had never understood, but could never again destroy. 3 months later, spring arrived like a benediction. I stood in my backyard watching Brian and the kids plant Martha's garden. The same tomatoes she'd grown, the same roses she'd loved. Life returning after winter's devastation. The legal proceedings had moved with surprising speed. Sarah, faced with overwhelming evidence, had accepted a plea deal. Fraud charges, 2 years probation, mandatory restitution of everything she'd stolen. The divorce was finalized in record time. Brian getting full custody after Sarah failed to show for 3 consecutive hearings. Marcus had vanished like smoke, apparently moving back to Los Angeles the day after Christmas Eve. Gloria faced her own charges, finally paying for patterns that started in Ohio. The house of cards had collapsed completely. "Grandpa, is this deep enough?" Emma called, holding a tomato plant. "Perfect, sweetheart. Your grandmother would be proud." The transformation in my grandchildren had been remarkable. 3 months of therapy of truth, of consistent love, had begun healing Sarah's damage. They called every day after school, spent weekends with me, slowly relearning trust. Brian emerged from the house carrying lemonade, looking 10 years younger than he had at Christmas. The stress lines had faded, the weight of lies lifted from his shoulders. His business had recovered once he'd focused on it fully, no longer drained by Sarah's deceptions. "Dad, I've been thinking," he said, handing me a glass. "About the house. They'd been living with me since Christmas Eve, my big house finally full of life again. But I knew this conversation was coming." "You need your own space," I said. "I understand." Actually, I was thinking the opposite. The kids love it here. I love it here. What if we made it permanent? I studied my son. "This is your childhood home. You sure you want that?" "I'm sure I want my kids to have what I had. A stable home. A grandfather who's present. Sunday dinners and birthday parties and Christmas mornings that matter." "What about when you meet someone new?" Brian laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd heard from him in years. "Dad, after Sarah, I'm in no rush. Besides, any woman I'd consider would have to love this family arrangement. It's a good test." We formalized it that afternoon. Brian and the kids would live in the house, contributing to expenses, but not rent. When I passed, it would be theirs. Until then, we were a multi-generational family, the way things used to be, the way Martha would have wanted. The financial aftermath was simpler than expected. The court ordered Sarah to repay the stolen funds through wage garnishment. Brian rebuilt his credit methodically. The mortgage on his old house was satisfied through its sale, leaving enough for the kids' college funds, this time in accounts Sarah couldn't touch. I'd resumed the tuition payments, but transparently now. Brian knew every contribution appreciated, without shame. We'd learned that secrets, even generous ones, created spaces for manipulation to grow. "Mr. Brennan," a voice called from the gate. Tom, my neighbor, waved over the fence. "Just wanted to thank you again for your help with the Homeowners Association. Sarah really had them convinced you were a danger to the neighborhood. Another of Sarah's schemes that had unraveled. She'd filed complaints with the HOA claiming I was showing signs of dementia, leaving tools around forgetting property lines. Tom, as HOA president, had investigated and found the opposite, a meticulous neighbor whose property was immaculate. "Just glad it's resolved," I told him. "More than resolved. We've updated our bylaws about false complaints. What she did won't happen to anyone else." Small victories, but they mattered. Each person Sarah had tried to turn against me had learned the truth. The community that might have supported her conservatorship plot now watched out for actual elder abuse. That evening, we held our first official Sunday dinner in the dining room. The table that had seemed too large for one now barely contained us all. Brian had invited Charles, and his wife, Ray, had brought his grandson. Even Harold from the bank joined us. A toast. Brian stood raising his glass. To truth, to family, to second chances. To Grandpa, Emma added, who protected us even when we didn't know we needed it. To Martha. I said quietly, who taught me that love means being smart about protecting what matters. We drank, we ate, we laughed. The empty spaces at the table didn't hurt anymore. Sarah's absence felt like a tumor removed, Gloria's like a shadow dispelled. What remained was real, honest, stronger for having been tested. After dinner, as the kids played board games with our guests, Brian and I stepped onto the porch. The spring evening was perfect cherry blossoms from Martha's tree drifting like snow. "I've been seeing a therapist," Brian admitted, "trying to understand how I missed so much." "We see what we expect to see. You expected a partner. She showed you that mask." "Still 12 years, Dad. How did I not know?" "Because you're a good man. Good men trust. It's not a weakness even when someone exploits it." "Is that why you helped me all those years without saying anything, Trust?" "That and love. You were drowning, too proud to ask for help, so I helped quietly, maybe too quietly." Brian shook his head. "No, you did it right. I needed to maintain my dignity while I recovered. Sarah perverted that generosity into something shameful. That's on her, not you." A comfortable silence fell. Inside, Emma's laughter rang out as she won whatever game they were playing. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "That Christmas Eve when Sarah was accusing you, you never looked surprised. Not once, like you'd scripted the whole thing." I smiled, remembering the war room Charles and I had created, every contingency planned. "Not scripted, anticipated. There's a difference." "How did you know she'd go through with it?" "Because she'd gone too far to stop. The edited recordings, the witnesses she'd coached, the lawyer she'd hired. Once you invest that much in a lie, backing down feels impossible. She had to play it out." "And you let her." "Sometimes the best trap is the one they set for themselves. I just made sure the right people were watching when it snapped shut." Brian studied me with new eyes. "You're kind of scary, you know that. Your mother always said the same thing, called me her quiet wolf, said I'd tear apart anyone who threatened our cubs." Even when the threat came from inside the family, especially then, those are the most dangerous predators, the ones who use love as camouflage. We went back inside to find Emma teaching Charles chess using strategies I'd taught her. James was showing Ray's grandson his coin collection, each piece a gift from me with a story attached. Normal moments that Sarah had tried to steal. As the evening wound down, people began leaving. Handshakes and hugs, promises of future dinners. Ray pulled me aside before going. "Any regrets about how it played out?" "None. You..." "Just one. I wish I'd caught her worse stuff. The affair's the theft that's standard. But using the kids, planning to lock you away, that's evil." "Evil's a strong word. What would you call it?" I thought about Sarah's calculated campaign, the recordings, the lies to my grandchildren. Broken. Someone so damaged they can't see people as anything but opportunities. Not evil, just empty. Ray grunted. You're more forgiving than me. Not forgiving, understanding. There's a difference. After everyone left, I helped Brian get the kids to bed. Tucking them in reading stories, normal grandfather privileges Sarah had tried to steal. "Grandpa," James asked sleepily, "are you really gonna live with us forever?" "As long as you'll have me." "Forever then," he mumbled, already drifting off. I found Brian in the kitchen washing dishes the old-fashioned way, finding peace in the simple task. "Thank you," he said without turning around. For being patient, for protecting us even when I failed to, for showing me what a real father does." "You're a real father, Brian. You just had your vision clouded for a while." He turned hands, soapy eyes wet. "How do I make sure this never happens again? How do I protect them from the next, Sarah?" "By teaching them what we've learned. That love includes verification, that trust requires transparency, that family means watching out for each other, especially when one of us can't see the danger." "Is that enough?" "It's a start. The rest is just paying attention." We finished cleaning in comfortable silence. The house felt different now, alive with possibility instead of haunted by secrets. Tomorrow there would be challenges, healing to continue, trust to rebuild. But tonight, we were home. Before heading to bed, I stopped in my study. Martha's picture still held place of honor on my desk, but now it was surrounded by new photos. Emma at her school play, James with his baseball team, Brian laughing at Sunday dinner. The family Sarah had tried to destroy, now stronger than ever. "We did it, love," I whispered to Martha's image. "Kept them safe, brought them home." In the photo, Martha smiled, eternally young, eternally proud. She'd always known I'd protect our family. It just took me a while to realize the threat was already inside the gates. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Legal proceedings to monitor, therapy to continue, trust to rebuild. But also simple joys, breakfast together, helping with homework, teaching James to fish, watching Emma paint. The life Sarah had tried to steal was ours again, richer for having been threatened, stronger for having been defended. Not perfect, but real. Not without scars, but healing. I turned off the light and headed to bed, past the sounds of my son checking locks, my grandchildren sleeping safely, my house full of family once more. The wolf had done his job. Now it was time to be just Grandpa again, present and protective, but no longer hunting. Sarah was gone, her schemes collapsed, her future dimmed by her own choices. We were free to build something better on the ruins of her deception. And we would day by day, meal by meal, truth by truth. The greatest revenge wasn't her downfall. It was our rising. Let me ask you this. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted within your own family? How did you handle it? And what would you have done differently? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel for more stories about justice, family, and the triumph of truth over deception. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, no matter your age. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Remember, the greatest strength sometimes comes disguised as patience. And the most powerful love knows when to show its teeth. Until next time, protect what matters, trust, but verify, and never underestimate the wisdom that comes with age. God bless and Merry Christmas to all of you who still believe in the power of family.